Hello, nonprofit rock stars and heroes. My name is Tom Check with Greater Impact Consulting, where we help you streamline Salesforce for your nonprofit organization so you can focus on what matters most, creating a greater impact in your community. Today we are talking about engagement plans, and specifically we're talking about how to use an engagement plan with the levels feature that we talked about in the last video. So if that's not familiar to you, go ahead and take a quick peek there. We built a really basic level setup for donors based on the total gifts this year field, where if they gave less than $1,000, they're at kind of the lower echelon of the giving tier. If they gave $1,000 to $10,000, they're in our middle tier, and if they gave more than $10,000, they're in our rock star kind of level. And levels are fantastic because they give you a really easy way to segment your contacts or your accounts based on a number field or a currency field in Salesforce. But when you manage to combine that with engagement plans, you have got rocket fuel on your hands. So what are engagement plans? Engagement plans are pretty straightforward as far as the concept of them. It's a list of tasks that get assigned to staff members in your organization. So they're based on the activities tasks, so schedule a call, send an email, those kinds of things. They're basically used as reminders for your staff. And an engagement plan, what it does is it allows you to assign one engagement plan that has a constant and consistent set of tasks that get applied on a specific timeline that you design. So from the time somebody gives me, let's say, $5,000, they're in that $1,000 to $10,000 range. I want my staff to go through and call them. I want them to add them to the mailing list. I want them to send them an impact report 6 months after that, right? Pretty basic, really simple stuff that you go through for every donor that hits that specific level, and maybe every donor in general. The engagement plan makes it that instead of having to add 3 different tasks every time somebody matches your criteria, you just add one engagement plan. You can make these fairly complex. You can add hundreds of tasks in here. I might not recommend that, especially to start, but as you develop your complex use cases for your org, just know that engagement plans can grow with you. So let's dive in, share a screen, and show you how to set up your first engagement plan, and then how to partner it with a giving level so that it's automatically added when a donor reaches a certain threshold, right? Then you don't have to do any of the manual work. All these tasks just show up automatically. So let's go ahead and share a screen, and we start at our home screen. And the easiest way to get into engagement plans is to go into our app launcher and just start typing engagement plan templates. When we click on this, we'll see any recently viewed ones, but we're gonna go ahead and start fresh. So we've got a couple of upfront pieces that you need to know about. One, we need to name our template. Makes sense, but this is what we're going to refer to as we add this to certain contacts in our organization for this use case. So for this, we're going to say donors who have given 1K to 10K this year. Description, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure to notate that this is used in donor levels, and this is the 1K to 10. Our default assignee is whoever's going to get the task if we don't notate somebody specifically. So if you've got somebody who is doing most of the follow-up for your donors, you would make them the default assignee. That way, if you forget to assign an assignee, that's who's going to get to see it. If you don't expect your employees to work on weekends, which I would highly recommend that you give them weekends off as much as possible, we're going to check the box to skip weekends. And all this means is if a task falls on a Saturday or Sunday, it's going to actually move that task to either the nearest Monday or Friday. And I'm going to select Monday in this option. And then this last piece, we're going to create some dependent tasks. And what that means is I don't want to add somebody to my mailing list until I've called to thank them for their donation, because part of that call and part of that script includes saying, is it okay if we add you to our mailing list? If the answer is yes, great, go ahead and add them. If not, don't. So anytime there's a dependent task, if I miss my due date for my parent task, my calling of the donor, This checkbox determines whether or not my child task gets updated and pushed back as well. Often that's really useful. It's kind of you need to think about it a little bit to make sure that it makes sense for your use case, but for today and for today's demo especially, we're going to go ahead and check that. And then we're going to start adding tasks, right? This is the bread and butter of engagement plans. So this is really basic, the default fields that show up on an activity or a task when you create it. So we're going to say for our task 1, we're going to say call donor to thank them. We're going to go ahead and assign this to, in this case, me. And this is going to be a phone call. This is going to be a high priority item. I want to thank them when they hit that $1,000 to $10,000 threshold. I'm going to remind my employee to do this at 9 a.m. And that's what all I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure to mark that there's a reminder, and then I can add comments in here as well. This donor reached a new giving level. Call them to thank them profusely. Now, like I said, I want to add a dependent task so that after that phone call happens, from that point forward, I'm going to then go into these follow-up tasks. So this is going to be add donor to mailing list. Again, this is going to be applied to or assigned to Tom Check. This is going to be an other. This is going to be a normal priority, and this is going to happen one day after the existing or the parent task. So if I go in and I set a reminder, then this will happen one day after I finish task 1. And you'll notice that this is set up task 1 and task 1-1. I can keep nesting these so that they have dependencies upon dependencies. So if I only want to do another task after somebody's been added to the mailing list, great, I would click go ahead and add dependent task there. I can also make sure that I only, let's say I want to invite this donor to an upcoming fundraiser. I want to make sure that that happens after I've called them to thank them. So I can add this as a dependent task there, and you'll see that this is task 1-2. Whereas if I add a dependent task to 1-1, if I add a task to 1-1, now I've got 1-1-1. So that's how dependent tasks work. All you're doing is nesting, and the name tells you which nest it's under. So we'll go ahead and delete that one, and we'll mark this subject as invite to next fundraiser. This is going to be assigned to my project or my program developer. We don't know, I'm in just a developer org here, so there aren't a whole lot of users to pick from. I think there's only me, but you might add this to your program director or one of your program staff or development staff rather to invite this person to a fundraiser. Again, this is probably going to be a call, and then you can mark as a reminder, mark at 9 a.m., and this is going to happen 30 days after we call them to thank them for their recent gift that pushed them up to this new threshold. And you see how this works. Now, totally separate from these tasks, I might also want to make sure that they get add donor to giving report for board. If I'm doing this manually and I'm not using a report in Salesforce to do this, then I might need to make this a task that one of my employees goes out and does. So we'll go ahead and we're not going to set a reminder for this. We're just going to mark this as a task for that employee. Great. Once I map all of this out and I create all of my tasks, then I have to save the engagement plan template. Once I save it, anytime I add this engagement plan to a contact, all 4 of those tasks are going to get created on that contact. So if I go back to contacts here, and let's say I go into Dom Blackton, I can go in and I can create a new engagement plan, and you see that in my related list here. And from here, all I have to do is select the engagement plan, donors who've given 1 to 10K this year, and I can add this manually to Dom. When I hit save, what I should see is if I refresh the page, I will have 4 upcoming tasks noted on this person. Call donor to thank them, marked as important, and then all the rest of these show up. And I've also got this reminder you see coming up in the top right-hand corner. Since this was assigned to me, this is what your employees would see. Call donor to thank them. If I click on that, It takes me right to the task. It shows me the name of the person I'm doing this for, and it gives me the comments, the due date, and the subject that are all set up in that engagement plan. If I go back to Dom, right, I'm your employee. I click on Dom, I call him. Thank you so much, Dom. I really appreciate it. I go ahead and check that box. And now everybody on the team can see that this person was called to thank them for their donation. And then later on in the day, I'm supposed to add this donor to the giving report for the board. Tomorrow, I'm going to add them to my mailing list. And then May 13th, I'm going to invite them to the next fundraiser. So all of that was added to this contact just by adding a single engagement plan. And that's really cool. If that's all you have to do, you're still saving yourself a ton of time where you just add one engagement plan and it adds multiple tasks to each contact. And you can use engagement plans on multiple objects. You can use them on opportunities, accounts, contacts, campaigns, etc. You can even add them on custom objects with a lookup field. If that's Greek to you, don't worry. That's more of an advanced feature down the road. So now let's talk about the power of matching this with levels. Levels are these automated fields that get updated based on when a currency or a number field reaches a certain threshold. And in our previous video, we set up member or some donor levels for when somebody's below $1,000 this year, $1,000 to $10,000 this year, or above $10,000 this year. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and make it so that this engagement plan that we just created automatically gets added to anybody who gives $1,000 to $10,000 this year according to that level. So if I go back into my levels, and I see that I've got my 3 levels, my misspelled rockstar level, my 1 to 10K level, and my less than $1,000 this year level. It's all based off of total opportunities this year on the contact object. So if I go in and I say 1 to 10K, I've got this option here for engagement plan template. And if I edit this, what I can do is I can go find that template that I just created, and I can add that to this engagement plan. Now what will happen is anytime somebody reaches this level, they'll automatically have that engagement plan added to their contact. And we can verify that this works by going into our nonprofit success pack settings. Normally your levels roll up every evening. We're going to run this batch manually so that you can see it in action. But just know that this would happen automatically once you add it to the levels. And in the evening, this batch goes ahead and runs. So that's how we automate this with levels. And as this is running in the background, I'll just also tell you there's one other way that you can really easily automate this. And that's through those automation tools that are covered in some of your other videos that we've created. So whether you're using workflow rules, which we don't generally recommend anymore, process builder, which is great for newer admins who want a way more visual but not necessarily overwhelming interface. So you can use process builder or something like flow, which is a little more powerful, a little more advanced. You can automate adding engagement plans to any of your related objects through these tools. And this allows you to go ahead and set up really awesome use cases where your team just sees the tasks added that they need to see as soon as they need to see them, without having to go in and keep their eye on these specific fields. I don't have to watch for when a donor reaches a certain giving level. It just happens automatically, and that saves my team time so that they can do the important stuff like call my donors and spend less time running reports and trying to sleuth through a bunch of data to find out who they should be calling. It puts it right in front of them and builds a task list for them right in Salesforce. So with all that being said, let's go see if we've got some contacts who should now have these giving levels added to them. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a special view here. And we should see, so these levels, Melanie Passy and John Malkovich have these levels added. Now, okay, so here we've got these tasks already added in here, right? And how cool that we didn't have to do anything. This happened overnight when our batch naturally ran. This person has this engagement plan with all these tasks automatically added to it. And that's the power of automating your engagement plans. Saves your team time. It makes sure that the right info shows up on the right screen at the right time without you having to do it manually. As a small team that's got a lot of stuff on your plate, the more you can automate these types of task creations, the more effective your team is going to be, and the more they're going to love using Salesforce because it tells them what to do with a lot of clarity. So with all that being said, take some time and sit down and figure out your moves management when it comes to levels and engagement plans. Sometimes they'll overlap and you'll add engagement plans based on levels. Sometimes engagement plans need to be a little bit more manual, but you still want to automate all the tasks. Figure out what works best for your organization, and if there's any way I can help, of course, don't hesitate to reach out. Until next time, keep up the awesome work you're doing in your communities, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.